Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Candidates Forum for the Bonita United School District. I'm Tom Hostetler, the chaplain here at Hillcrest, and I will be your moderator today. We're looking forward to an hour or so of respected sharing as we experience a conversation about what is best for the education of our children and schools in an informed choice of those who represent us on the school board. Congratulations to your decision to come out today to hear these candidates. What we say and do about local education is central to our understanding of an informed democratic society. About 100 years ago, America made secondary education in high school compulsory. That was almost unprecedented, a massive leap forward, and it drove a lot of our economic boom over the past 100 years. Obviously, the world is radically different from that time, but unfortunately, education has not always kept pace. And you see other nations out-educating, out-investing, out-innovating us. We now have a globally competitive economy where we're competing with India and China and Singapore and everywhere else. That's the world our kids grow up into, and we're never going to go back the opposite direction. So what we think about teacher education and teacher training and pay and educational standards and strategies to achieve high school completion and college preparation and trade and technical and vocational training, all of them are important to keep our civic democracy healthy. So here is an opportunity to hear from those who will have a voice in shaping the future of education and ask them your questions about the things that you believe are important. As we begin, will you join me as we recognize our sponsor and host for this event, Hillcrest Homes. We are glad to welcome you here. As we begin, let me explain our procedure. Each of the candidates will begin with an opening statement, and that will be followed by a question and answer period with questions coming from any of you. If you have a question that you would like to submit throughout the meeting, raise your hand and someone will come over and hand you a card, and you may write one question per card, please, which may be directed to any one of the candidates or all of the candidates. Please indicate that on your card. And then raise your hand again when you are finished writing, and someone will come over and pick up your question and bring it over to our tellers, who will collect all of that information and hand them to me. And when they give me the question, each of those questions will be asked in the order that they arrive. So we rely on your participation today, or this could be a short meeting and an early lunch. So please do share your comments. We will start with the candidates' opening questions, and as we do that, if you have a question you'd like to write, please raise your hand, and people will come and give you a card. So our thanks also to the timekeeper, who is sitting at this table over here on my left, who will indicate when the candidates have 30 seconds left with a yellow warning card prior to the red stop card. The candidates will please follow these time limits strictly to maintain order and fairness. If the candidate goes past the red card, I will ask you to stop. So we'll have start with the candidates' opening statements, which are limited to 3 minutes each. And the first opening statement will come from Derek Bahmanou. Is that right?
Bahmanou, but that's close enough.
Bahmanou, thank you. Okay. And who will have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Should I go up there?
No, you each have a microphone.
Okay. So
Sure.
this works.
That works.
First, I'd like to say thank you to Hillcrest. I'd like to say thank you to Mayor Kendrick, to Carl Coles, for everyone who's made this event possible. I think this is an amazing event. I'm humbled and honored to be here. And I think it's great that all of you guys are here because you care about our kids and want to make sure we get the best possible school board members on the school board. And we have 3 great candidates. Honestly, this is unlike a lot of elections where there's not really a bad choice. You have Chuck Coyne. He is the incumbent. He has been an incumbent for many years. His daughter graduated through the school system and got a world-class education. We have Krista Chakmak. She grew up here, she graduated here. She is involved in many organizations, and she is a social media wizard because she has just done great things with social media. And finally, you have me. I'm an educator. I have my master's degree in education. I'm a teacher, and I'm very passionate about making sure all of our kids get a world-class education. And for me, the key thing really is we want to make sure all of our kids get a well-rounded education. When I was a kid, we had great classes. We had auto shop, metal shop, wood shop. We had many different pathways, and I'd really like to see our schools go back to something like that, where we don't have a one-size-fits-all educational system, but instead, we can help kids with different learning modalities. Kids who work well with their hands figure out that they actually are good at things. As an educator, I know the best way to discover what your talents are is by exposure. And I believe if we can give our kids good exposure to a variety of skills, they will benefit from it. So again, I'm a teacher, and I believe mastery matters. So in my head, I'm thinking, if you want someone to give you good medical advice, you see a doctor. If you want someone to put a good roof on your house, you hire a roofer, because education and experience matters. In the same vein, I think if we want really good educational policy, we should elect an educator. Currently, there's not another educator on our school board. Currently, there's not another educator running for the school board position. And I just think that voice would really help our kids get better educational outcomes. Again, thank you for showing up. Thank you for your participation, and I look forward to hearing your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bahmanou. Thank you. Next, we will hear from candidate Krista Chakmak, who will have 3 minutes. Ms. Chakmak, welcome.
Thank you, and good morning. My name is Krista Chakmak, and I am running for Bonita Unified School District School Board. My husband Alex and I have been married for 10 years, and he's here in the audience. And we have 2 boys, age 4 and 6. As a 28-year resident of the district, I feel it's my time to give back to our community by applying my drive and passion to continue Bonita Unified School District's legacy of educational excellence. I began my personal experience with Bonita Unified School District as an elementary student at Allen Avenue. Now, 33 years later, our son started kindergarten at Roynan. I look forward to my position as hospitality chair on the PTA board this coming school year. As an active member of our community, I dedicate my time to a variety of community outreach projects, including the nonprofit Save the Heartbeat Foundation, the Hillcrest Business Associates, and the City of Laverne's Youth and Family Action Committee. My focus truly is kids and community, because I am a passionate advocate for all children and for the power of community to make us safer, stronger, and kinder. The areas I see as deserving special focus for the upcoming term are campus safety, children with special needs, music and arts programs, nutrition, teacher retention, and improved emotional support systems for our children. I am a community leader who volunteers from my heart, a neighbor who champions inclusion and connection, and a mother who strives for excellence in all that I do. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Ms. Chakmak. And we will hear from candidate Charles Chuck Coyne, who will have 3 minutes. Mr. Coyne, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by also... Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking the folks here at Hillcrest for hosting us here this morning, and I'd like to thank each of you for joining us here this morning. If I'm squinting, it's because I'm scheduled for cataract surgery later in the year, so these lights are... So I'm squinting, not scowling. So even though I've been on the board for quite a while, folks still like to ask why I'm qualified to be on the board, and that's a good question. I come from a family of educators. My mother and grandmother were both teachers. One of my sisters taught high school math. One of my sisters is a college educator, college administrator, and another one oversees university research graduate students. My wife was an elementary school teacher, and so my classroom volunteering began a long time ago. To be an effective board member, I think it's important to first really know your school district and your community. Before I was elected, I had served as a PTA officer, served on the school site council, on the district's budget development advisory group, served on a principals selection panel, and I was also on our Measure C bond committee. After that, I served on the as co-chair of the bond oversight committee, and after being elected to the board, we subsequently passed bond measure AB. And thanks to those bonds, all 13 of our campuses were modernized and upgraded. New gyms were built, as was the beautiful new Bonita Center for the Arts. All these projects were completed on or under budget, and our final two projects will finish up this year. I'm proud that Bonita is a high-performing district and is a highly desired destination for teachers and staff to spend their careers. As a result, for the last decade or more, we have been able to recruit and retain the best of the best teachers and staff. We are excelling at our job of preparing every individual student to fulfill their purpose in our schools and after graduation. I've worked hard to do my part as a board member, and I'm excited by the opportunity to continue. I'd really appreciate your vote on November 6th or earlier if you're voting by mail. Thank you for attending this forum and showing your interest in the Bonita Unified School District.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. Now we come to the question and answer period when the candidates will be given 2 minutes to respond to the questions that you have submitted. In these rules of procedure, please note that there is no time given in debate for rebuttal, so I advise each candidate to state their case fully when it is their turn. In the case where the question is addressed to all of the candidates, we will use a rotating order for response, starting in alphabetical order. Let me take the first question. This question is addressed to all three of the candidates. Tell us what volunteer organizations you have been involved with in the last 10 years. And that question will first go to Mr. Bahmanou.
That's a great question. My volunteerism hasn't really been focused on structured programs here. I actually have done several things with my church. My wife and I are big believers of giving back. So we had a friend of mine, Angel Uribe. Him and his wife were saving up for a house, so we had them move in with us, rent-free, so they can save up for a mortgage. My brother was going through a hard time. He had some dependency issues, and we ended up helping him find a sober living place so he could actually get the help that he needs. He's now living a healthy, productive life. When I was a youth pastor many decades ago, I was very involved in all those kids' lives, and it's been many years since I've been a youth pastor, and I still go and do weddings, funerals, I go to graduations. So I'm someone who's in it for the long haul. I'm someone who believes if I'm lucky enough to be a part of a community, I need to give back, and I'm not here for one day. I'm someone who'll be here for 10, 15, 20 years, doing the best I can to make sure all of us get the best outcomes. So although I have not been on a bunch of committees, I have been very busy in trying to make our world a better place, both as a youth pastor and as a regular citizen, and I've actually had very good outcomes because of that. My friend Angel got a house. My brother's now living a very healthy, productive life with his family. The youth I served, they're living a wonderful life. And these things, I think, are just normal things you need to do. So thank you for the question, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Chakmak.
In the past 10 years, I've done several I've participated in several volunteer projects. I was on the Verne Parent Participation School Board for my son's education. I am a part of the Youth and Family Action Committee for Verne. I'm on the Hillcrest Business Associates. which meets here. I've done several volunteer days at David and Margaret. I've done events with Verne and San Dimas Chamber, and I'm also associated with Save the Heartbeat, which is a nonprofit.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. Please use your microphone and hold it close so that people can hear.
You know, by the chin? Is that working? Okay, I'm sorry. Well, in addition to my volunteer involvement mentioned earlier, I've also served on the board of the Verne and San Dimas Educational Foundation on several of their committees, the Golf Tournament Committee and those sorts of things. When our daughter was younger, I served on the board of the San Dimas Youth Softball Association, as well as coached and helped manage her softball teams all the way through middle school. She went to high school and wanted to be a cheerleader, so my coaching days were over. I think it's important to have these involvements because it gives you a chance to know the community, and it gives the community a chance to get to know you and the sorts of things that you represent and stand for, and your qualifications and that sort of thing. One other item doesn't spring to mind that it involves volunteering, but I think that sums up my answer for that one.
Okay. Thank you. Here is the second question that is addressed to all of you. Do you support notification to all parents regarding AB 329 sex education so that they can opt their children out of this curriculum? And so we will begin then with Mrs. Chakmak, or Ms. Chakmak, sorry.
Mrs. is fine. Either one.
Okay.
I do support this. I think it's important for the parents to be able to opt out of this education if they think that it doesn't suit their children. But I do think that the education is important.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coyne.
That function, like so much of what we do in the schools, is predicated by the education code, and so of course you have to support what the education code requires, and that requires advanced notification and the ability for parents to opt their child out.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bahmanou.
I'm a big believer in public education, and I think as a believer in public education, we have a huge responsibility to make sure that all parents and all families feel comfortable and safe with the instruction their kids are receiving. So I believe in making sure curriculum's available for all people to review. I believe in an opt-out. This way parents don't feel that schools are working against them, but they can know that we're working for them.
Okay, thank you. The next question is addressed to all of you, and the question is, should teachers be held to a higher standard and be completely drug-free? Mr. Coyne.
That's an interesting question. You know, teachers are subject to you know, all the same pressures and stresses as anyone else in society. Of course, they do have their challenges like anyone else in society. Never have honestly given thought that we should drug test our teachers. Definitely a subject worth thinking about and approaching with due diligence and thought. So I'd have to give that question more thought before I gave a good answer.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bahmanou?
As a teacher, I know that there's a high level of expectation on teachers. We need to be good role models. So I believe that we need to be drug-free. We should not have bad pictures on Facebook, and we need to be role models for our kids and our community. So yes, I think we should be drug-free. At the same time, if the question's about drug testing, I would say only if there's a reason for it. I don't think that'd be something that would be cost-effective.
Thank you. Ms. Chakmak.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes, the question is, should teachers be held to a higher standard and be completely drug-free?
I think that our teachers should be held to the same level as the rest of our community. when they're in the classroom, I think that they should be held to a different level because they're in front of our children. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is also addressed to all of the candidates, and the question is, do all of you currently have children in the Bonita School District? And Mr. Bahmanou.
This is my favorite question so far. I have two amazing children. My daughter Abby is 6 years old. She's in first grade at Ekstrand Elementary. My son is going to enter preschool. Next year he'll be in TK and then kindergarten. So I did the math. I'm going to have kids in the school district for the next 15 years. And I think that is an incredible blessing and opportunity. So yes, I have kids in the district, and I'm very excited about the wonderful education they're receiving.
Thank you. Ms. Chakmak.
Yes, I do have a son that's currently in the district. He started at Coyne this year. But I have countless other kids that are in the district that I love, and they may not be my blood, but they are definitely my kids.
Okay, good. Thank you. Mr. Coyne?
Our daughter graduated from San Dimas High School in 2012. Very proud to say she went on to college, graduated college a couple years ago, and is off on a tremendous career. So I feel that she was very, very well prepared for her next purpose by our school district. You know, implied in the question is that it is the question of the importance of having a student in the district as you serve on the board. And now having been on both sides of that coin, it just slipped out, I'm sorry. Perhaps our daughter was a drama queen to a degree, but there are definitely upsides and downsides to having a parent be on the board. You know, not every teacher out there loves the school board, to be honest, and there are things and situations that happen when you are on the board that as a parent, I'd want to go charging in there and you know, take care of business in regards to my daughter, but you know, you talked about being at teachers being held to a higher level, so are board members. And so you have to moderate yourself when these situations that come up that happen to any child in any school, to any parent, because you're setting an example as a role model. And so there's pluses and minuses to being a current parent with a child in the district. Currently, of course, I feel that it's far better to not have a child in the district if you're on the board.
Okay.
But I'm biased.
Thank you. All right. The next question is for all three of you, and the question is, what qualifications do you have for this position? And we begin with Ms. Chakmak.
I think the most important qualification I have is that I'm a mother, and I'm an advocate for my son and for a lot of other kids in our community. Another qualification would be that I have spent a lot of time volunteering in community outreach programs in this community, and I've built a lot of relationships with community members, community leaders, and I think that that is priceless. I think that continuing the relationships with our school district and our school district and our community is the number one. We have to all work together to provide our kids a safe and kind and respectful community.
Thank you. Mr. Coyne.
Thank you. There's so much more to the job of being a board member than the educational portion of the school district. Under the purview is included student and employee health and safety, construction issues, finance, managing bond money, customer service, pensions, insurance, the Allen bill, transportation, community relations, attending community events, having the time to visit and see as many classrooms during the school year as possible. I run my own business, so I'm kind of a budget hawk, and I think that's an important factor to have on the school board is someone from business or who's worked in business that really can understand the bottom line. There's any number of great programs and such that we could bring on board, but it all takes money, and it all needs to pencil out on the bottom line. So I think being in business or having worked in business is a qualifier, I'll put out that my 13 years of experience on the board also qualifies me to be on the board.
Thank you. Mr. Bahmanou.
Well, first I would say I think it's very important for us to have a wide variety of people on the school board. We need many different perspectives, and we need people who can actually listen to each other and listen to understand so we can find win-win solutions. So first, I do have that skill. But one of the reasons why I think I'd be a great school board member is because I've actually studied education. I have a master's degree in education. I also work in education. And sometimes when you work in a field, you actually have a deep understanding of it. You understand the nuts and bolts of things. You're able to examine the details and really find meaningful things there. I hired an electrician, and I'd been working on something for about a month. And this guy, no joke, came in, and he fixed it in about an hour. Now, what does that mean besides I'm not a great electrician? It means that mastery and experience matter. So I believe that my experience in the classroom and my education really would make me a wonderful school board member, and it's a voice that I think would aid our school board in making even better decisions.
Thank you. The next question has to do with school safety, which is an issue that is in the news. So the question is, how will you work to make schools safe or safer? And we begin our question with Mr. Coyne.
Well, school safety, of course, is in the headlines these days, and San Dimas and Laverne are both served by the school district. So in Laverne, we work hand in hand with the Laverne Police Department. In San Dimas, we're covered by the sheriffs over there, so we have great relationships with the sheriffs. There's a lot that goes on that doesn't make headlines that those two departments get involved in. So proactively and after the fact, there's a lot going on in the safety of our schools that fortunately no one ever hears about. When issues do arise, they're very professional, and they're able to get a hold of the situation and get things under control and moderated pretty quickly. And so that's kind of on the responsive end of things. We've done more and more on the school sites themselves as far as people getting on the campuses. You can't just walk into the campus and wander around. You have to stop at the office, have your driver's license scanned. You're given a little badge that has your picture on it, and that's throughout all of our schools. And that does two things. It makes sure that a record of who that was is kept, and that also goes immediately to the sex offender database. And I don't believe it's happened here, but I have heard of it happening in other districts where offenders have tried to get into schools. They were flagged right then with this system, and a potential problem was averted. So safety is, it's primary, job one, all the way from our, from A to Z through the district. And I think we're doing as much as can be done. There's always more to be done, and we're always looking at ways to improve and enhance the safety of our children and our employees.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Bahmanou.
First, I would say we're very fortunate to have a very good leadership team in our district. We have people who have actually spent a lot of time thinking about this. They have these blocks that can lock doors rather quickly. We have a system that allows us to check backgrounds and get IDs out to people. But I do think there's more that we can do. As a teacher, one of the things that bothers me about my campus is if there's an active shooter drill, sometimes it takes the police 5 minutes to respond. I would like to make sure that we could reduce that time. We have drills, they do practice, but I think some way we need to make sure that we can have a response quicker. We do have 2 armed police officers or security guards, I think they're police officers, on our campuses. The problem is we have more than 2 campuses. So we definitely need to foster or continue to foster a great relationship with the Sheriff's Department and the Laverne PD. And finally, one of the things I would like to see us add is they have these clamps that can go on top of doors to lock them from the inside. Currently, I don't think we have those. And what that means is if there's a shooter and they're in the front of the school, they can get keys and open up a door. Now, we have trained our staff to barricade the doors, and I think that's a very good thing to do. But I'd like us to consistently work on this problem to make sure we have the best possible solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chakmak.
I have visited, actually I visited all the school campuses aside from Chaparral, which is on my list. And I did notice that they have put in the lock block mechanism to all the classrooms. And they also added peepholes, which I think are great additions. I also, by attending the Youth and Family Action Committee, I get reports from the resource officer that is on our campuses, and I think that that's important. He does a great job. I would love to have 10 times the amount of Frankies that are in our district. I also think that by improving emotional support systems, that this has a great opportunity to make our campuses safer. At Grace Miller, at my recent tour, they do many programs, one of which is called a Peace Builder program, which teaches the kids how to resolve conflict on the playground. And I think that giving our kids the tools to be able to resolve conflict and make better choices and be emotionally comfortable will keep our campuses safer. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question, one person from the audience would like to know, and this is for any of the candidates who would like to respond, would like to know about affiliation with ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council. Do any of the candidates wish to speak to that question? No one knows. I don't know anything. Okay.
I'll just say I'm not at all familiar with it.
Okay.
So can't say much.
All right. Okay. Thank you. The next question is for all the candidates. Please tell us how you think we can ensure equity of services and facilities for both San Dimas and Laverne. So we'll begin with Mr. Coyne.
For as long as I have been on the board and before, this school board has treated the district as a district that happens to serve 2 different cities. When we did the easiest qualifier for that is how the bond money was spent out. Every one of the schools got modernized. Every one of the schools got upgraded to the latest at 10 years ago, 15 years ago now, to the current technology standards and needs. When we look at policies and procedures, you know, they have to be equitable across the line. There has been an issue in the past where one side of town thinks the other side of town is getting a better deal or got a better deal, and I think that's just kind of maybe the natural rivalry between groups of people, just like the smudge pot. You know, both cities want to take that smudge pot home on Friday nights. So that is a question that comes up. I think it's a valid question. And I'll just reassure everyone that everyone that's on the board right now and that I've worked with in the past has always made it a high priority to make sure that things are equal across the board for all 8 of our elementary schools, our 2 middle schools, and our 3 high schools.
Thank you. Mr. Bahmanou.
I think equity is a very important idea. And it doesn't mean equality. It doesn't mean we give everyone exactly the same thing. I love my kids, but they have different needs. And because they have different needs, I need to give them different things. My son likes time together, so I'll be working on something, and my son will come up, Daddy, I have no friends. Will you play Legos with me? Now, I really would like to work, but I stop what I'm doing, I play Legos with him. My daughter, what she wants is actually for me to help her with her craft projects. But that doesn't mean I'm treating them equally. That means I'm knowing my kids, and I'm giving them what they need. In my belief, we need to have good communication with all the parents, all the PTAs. If I'm lucky enough to be on the school board, I will attend every single PTA meeting, not for all schools, but every school I will visit, just to make sure there's not this separation between school board and parents. I will make myself available at Starbucks meetings because I think the best way to have equity is to listen. And my goal is to listen to the communities of Verne and San Dimas to make sure that we give our schools and our children the education that they need.
Thank you. Ms. Chakmak.
Yes, I believe strongly in being equal through the cities and in the communities. And one of the ways that I will make sure that I do this is by being active at all of the schools. For back to school nights, I visited every school. It was a challenge, and I ran, literally, but I made it, and I think that that's important because all of our schools need all of our attention. And I plan on also continuing that and visiting all of our schools throughout the district during school hours, which is very important because I need to see and feel what's going on in our schools. Also by building relationships throughout the cities. San Dimas and Verne are both very important, and I think that building the relationships with community leaders is key. Thank you.
Thanks. This is for all three candidates. The question is preceded by a statement. A few months ago, an issue of the paw print at the high school created some fuss when it was published. What's your opinion of the content of that issue and the community response when it was published? We begin that question with Mr. Bahmanou.
I guess I should ask a question. With the paw print, were we talking about the school newspaper that published something about our president?
I don't know the context of that question. Would the questioner care to elaborate?
Okay, I would love to answer that. First, I would say I think our school board and our school district handled that well. I think it's important for our school district to be bipartisan, and we need to teach our kids to respect the office of the presidency. What people do on their own time is their business, but as far as a public school goes, I think there's a level of decorum and civility that's required. So I think we need to make sure that everyone feels safe on our campuses, and this means expecting a level of civility within our school newspapers.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chakmak, care to respond?
I think that the article that was written and put into the newspaper was perhaps not the best choice, but that it was published in this. But I think that it is important for our children to have a space where they can speak freely, and it's unfortunate that this particular article was very, it evoked a lot of emotion and not positive, but I think that it's, to censor our kids is not okay. And although I didn't enjoy the article, and I think that there were some poor, I think that it was not, it was a harsh article, it was negative, and it brought out a lot of negative emotion, but I think that our kids having a safe space to speak and put out their thoughts is also important.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coyne.
I've spent my career in publishing, and so this question is right up my wheelhouse. The First Amendment is the First Amendment, and in that First Amendment, of course, is freedom of the press. Freedom of the press extends all the way down to high school newspapers. Those students rankled a few people, there is no doubt about that. It was definitely a big to-do in the district, all the way up to board members, and that really is the bottom line. Like it or not, high school students in a journalism class have the exact same freedom of the press as the LA Times, CNN, Fox, or any other news organization out there. And there could have been, again, being in publishing, they used, kids, they used some images off the internet that they did not have copyright permission to use, and different procedural things that really do need to be addressed, you know, at the teaching level. But they publish that magazine regularly. Most of the time it's what you would expect in a high school publication, talking about the sports teams and the arts and that sort of thing. They did grab a third rail of politics, and if we're sending them to school to learn, you can be guaranteed they all learned some very valuable lifelong lessons, as did some teachers and administrators. So I agree with Krista. They have a First Amendment right, and boy, if we can't teach our children to abide by the Constitution, then we're not teaching them the right thing. So there we go.
Thank you. All right. This question is for all of you. One of the key responsibilities in the board or at the board is accountability. Please expand on your understanding of this responsibility and how you believe accountability can and will be improved with your leadership on the board. Accountability. And we begin with, I've forgotten where we are. Ms. Chakmak.
I was hoping you were going to say someone else's name. I think that the best way for me to, I don't know actually if accountability needs to be improved, but I can say that by having me on this board, I will contribute in a positive way towards the accountability because I am active in the community, and I have a child that's currently in the district and one more that's coming up, and I'm invested in the schools and my community, and I go to a lot of meetings as it is. I'd love to have this one be in one of my meetings, and I think that I know that our superintendent, Carl Coles, believes strongly in being transparent, and I think that by being transparent, then we have to be accountable.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coyne.
One of the themes that the district is starting out on is a new emphasis on equity, mastery, and focus on results. So focus on results, it's all about tests and test scores, and I'm happy to report that ours are rising. They're rising faster than a lot of districts in the neighborhood, and we're doing a lot of great things. As far as, you know, accountability, that's where it's important to be out in the community, to see what your friends and neighbors have to say. It's important to be in the classrooms to see what the teachers have to say, to see what the students have to say, and I agree with Krista. You know, transparency is key. All our business on the school board is held in open session, except personnel things, which of course are in closed session. And I would forewarn Krista, if she gets elected, to be ready to be accountable in the grocery store, because Patty Lauderell, who's stepping down after 17 years on the board, tells lots of stories of conversations that she has in the grocery store about the school district. So accountability is absolutely critical, and I think that from A to Z, we hold ourselves within the district very highly accountable for everything that happens, and I think we have good reason to be proud of everything that happens in this district as well.
Thank you. Mr. Bahmanou.
First, I think there's many avenues of accountability. First and foremost, all the school board members, we will be accountable to the voters. You guys get to pick who gets to be on the board and who does not get to be on the board. If we're not doing a good job or a good enough job, it's a very simple solution. You vote for someone else. So I do think there's an inherent accountability built into the democratic process. We also have a superintendent and a leadership team that's accountable to the board. We have teachers who are accountable to the leadership team. So education really is predicated on accountability. And I think there are several things that can make accountability work even better. And one of them, and it's a value our district strongly believes in, is transparency. We need to make sure people know what's going on, and we need to do a good job of communicating, and we should also be open to allowing people to kind of review materials and to kind of see what we're doing. Because if it seems like we're hiding something, I think even if we're doing everything the right way, I feel that we're kind of not, there's a impression of evil, and I think we really need to go with full and unabashed transparency. Also, I think process is important. I'm someone who's a big believer in process. I'll give you a quick story. When I met my wife, I met her on eHarmony. And I was 30, and I wanted to make sure I find someone who was a good fit for me. Not someone who is a great person, because you could find a great person who's not a good fit for you. I wanted to find someone who's a great fit for me. So as a teacher, I had a rubric, I had a process. And after years, I found a wonderful wife, and because of that, I've actually seen the results of following through a process. So my short answer is, one, yes, we should be accountable. We should have good communication with our community. We need to be transparent. And if there's a process, we need to be diligent in following that process.
Thank you. I wondered if anyone would raise their spouse when the question of accountability came up. Thank you. Just kidding. Here is a question for all of you. The role of the BUSD school board in setting teacher and staff salaries. Are BUSD salaries competitive with other school districts? We begin with Mr. Coyne.
As I said earlier, the Bonita Unified School District is a definite destination district for teachers, especially. In the last 10 years, 12 years, we get literally hundreds of applications for each job opening for teachers. So we have, for the past 10, 12 years, been able to pick the best and the brightest teachers, and our students benefit from that. Salaries, to be honest, the board does not at all get involved in setting salary schedules. That's all negotiated between the leadership of the bargaining units and personnel who are selected from the district office, not necessarily the superintendent, but assistant superintendents and other people that are involved in administration of the district. We, for many years, have settled our contracts in plenty time for the coming school year. There are a lot of districts where teachers are working, teachers and classified people are working without a contract. They're working with a contract that has been expired for a year, 2 years or more. And so we have very, very good relationships between our bargaining units and the folks at the district office and the board, and was not always such. It's not as pleasant at some other districts as it is here at Bonita Unified, and it takes a team all working in the same direction, and we really do have that here with the leadership of the district, working with the leadership of the bargaining units to make sure that everyone is paid. Everyone wants to make as much money as they possibly can. There's no doubt about that. The district sure wants. Oh, I'm out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Bahmanou.
First, before I address the question directly, I'd say as a teacher, there are many variables into why you pick to teach at a school district. Salary is one, but there's other things as well. Leadership team, is there stability? Because as people have been in a position for a longer period of time, relationships deepen and they become more effective. So one of the things I want to make sure is that we have stability in upper management. Another thing is culture. Is there a culture that's focused on educating our kids? Are teachers supported? There's many variables, and I think that our district's doing a really good job with those variables currently, and I want to make sure that continues. As far as specific salaries, I think that our district has a really good relationship with all the bargaining units. So I think that relationship and the philosophy that our upper management has will continue to foster and to kind of build up a good relationship with all the bargaining units. So I know Mr. Coles and his leadership team have a good philosophy, and I'm fully confident that this wonderful relationship of mutual respect will continue.
Thank you. Ms. Chakmak.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yes, the question is about the role of the Bonita United School District Board in setting teacher and staff salaries. Are BUSD salaries competitive with other school districts?
I believe my role in the salaries of the Bonita Unified employees, that I'm not in that, I don't have a role in that. But my role would be to maintain and foster relationships with the parties that do manage that, and between the unions and the Bonita Unified School District management. I think that creating and keeping the relationship that they have right now, which is of respect, and I think that that is important, and I would do nothing but keep that relationship and foster it and keep it strong.
Thank you. The next question is along the same area, but it has to do with governance, finance, operations. So this question is for all of you. Where would you like to see additional spending in the district? And as a piece of that question, what experience do you have with complicated budgets? So the question goes first to Mr. Bahmanou.
First, I should kind of share this. I've been accused by my college roommates, my close friends, and my wife of being able to divide a dime into 11 pennies. So I'm someone who's very diligent on making sure that every single cent gets spent to have the best possible outcome. In college, that meant, and by the way, I was a very poor college student, but in college that meant getting napkins when you went shopping and using those for whatever purposes you can. So I'm someone who definitely believes in good stewardship. I believe in balanced budgets. I believe that if people trust you with finances, you need to make sure you have the best people possible looking at the budgets, and you need to trust their advice. So again, I'm someone who believes in balanced budgets. Secondly, one of the areas that I really think we need to invest money in is we need to build up our trade skill pathways. I think we need to make sure we keep auto shops in our schools, but I also think we need to help our kids get a well-rounded education. And that means expanding P-Tech programs, that means expanding trade skill programs, and that means hopefully maybe looking at a dual immersion program if that works for our community. And I would also say, as someone who cares about budgets, if you start something, you really need to follow it through fruition. Because there's a lot of times school districts, they'll start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. And these starting and stopping of projects causes a lot of wasted money. We are currently working on mental health. And I think we need to make sure that we work with mental health and make sure all of our kids get the help we need. This is part of our current vision, and we need to make sure that also gets fulfilled. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chakmak.
I'm sorry to ask you this, but can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So the question was, where would you like to see additional spending in the district? And in relation to that question, what experience do you have with complicated budgets. So it's kind of a two-part question.
Okay. I'm going to start with the additional spending. If we had an opportunity to do additional spending, I would like to see this money go towards counselors for our children. I think that the schools need additional counselors. I also think they need designated safe spaces for their work. Our children should feel safe and private when speaking to these counselors. Sometimes they're, put in temporary offices or offices that aren't as private as they would like to be. Also, I think that money should go towards programs that increase our children's emotional support, such as, I go back to Grace Miller, but it was just an amazing visit. But they do a weekly yoga session in their PE, and I think that programs like that are where we should be looking at and increasing the money towards our children's emotional stability. Difficult budgets, my household, and also being a part of a school such as Laverne Parent Participation, we had to get very creative with our spending. And also, being a part of a nonprofit, Save the Heartbeat, I planned their gala, and we had to, or I shouldn't say I was on a committee to plan their gala, and that was a difficult budget that we had to maintain.
Mr. Coyne.
Thank you. Well, having been on the board for 13 years, it's very easy for me to claim the high ground of the most complicated budget I've dealt with is the school district's budget for the last 13 years, so that one's easy. As far as the second part of the question,
budgets, your experience with budgets, or
additional.
If we had
additional funding,
additional spending,
where would we spend the money?
Yes.
Well, I agree with Krista. We have. I have notes. Okay, here we go. I agree with Krista that we really need to address the counseling issue from kindergarten on up to senior level. It doesn't take very long to look at the headlines to know that our children are under stresses and strains that none of us could have imagined when we were their age. So how do we imagine that they're coping with all these stresses and strains? It's the internet. If they don't have internet, it's their friends who have internet. It's a rather chaotic world out there for them. When we were going to school, you kind of had in mind what your end goal was. They're going to school now, and a job that they may be thinking about may not exist when they graduate. Society is just changing so fast. If you send a child to school hungry, you can't expect them to learn very well. If you send a child to school with a hurt or a sad heart, you can't expect them to learn very well. So if we inherited a chunk of money, there's no limit to the programs, educational type of programs that we could add. My priority would be more counseling and programs that support counseling and the emotional component of the students, because that's what's needed right now. We don't need more classes. We might need more students doing well in their classes.
Thank you. Well, I knew this would happen. There are more questions than we have time for. But you have heard from each of the candidates an hour or so of responses, and we're thankful to them for all of them. And so now we will hear concluding statements from each of the candidates in reverse alphabetical order. Each will have 3 minutes, and we'll begin with Mr. Coyne.
Thank you. Even as we sit here this morning, we have 470 teachers hard at work in their classrooms and about 10,000 students out there learning from them. It's an awesome responsibility, and it's been an honor to have been serving on the board. I hope to serve another 4 years. Part of my thought about what a school board is for is to provide civilian oversight of the school district. We do not have a top-down school board manages everything, micromanaging system here. We have, I've been in many of the classrooms over the years. I've certainly not been all of them, but it's a delight to be able to go into the classrooms when the teachers are there interacting with their students, and they are the experts in their unique classroom. Every school is unique, and every group of teachers and principals and staff on that school is an expert on that particular school, and this district is a very unique and special district. The board's place is to listen to these experts who are in those classrooms, to listen to those principals looking over the classrooms, and to get the advice of our administrators at the district office. They're the people with their boots on the ground on a day-to-day basis whose job it is to find the best possible practices that we can emulate. We're comparing ourselves these days with school districts like Walnut, Arcadia, Claremont, Upland, Glendora. No, I don't remember it. So we're comparing ourselves to the best of the best. We're not better than the best of the best, but by golly, we're chasing them down. And under the leadership that we have at the district office right now, I have no doubt that we're going to get there and be a district that you folks are going to be even more proud of in the future. So thanks again for coming out this morning. Thank you for hosting us here at Hillcrest, and I sure would be appreciating your vote on November 6th or earlier if you're voting by mail, and would appreciate if you tell your friends and families and neighbors to vote for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chakmak.
6 months ago, I had no plans to run for this office. The community-centered life I have created is authentic and has taken years to build and foster. Years of waving to my neighbors, years of including others I didn't know, years of meal deliveries and volunteering and creating relationships with many different kinds of people. My genuine belief in the power of community has blossomed into a passion for service, and the center of this passion is my focus on the well-being of our children. Maintaining the educational excellence of Bonita Unified School District and expanding programs that support the emotional health of our kids and their families are essential elements to the safety and strength of our community. Our children will learn from us and our actions. If we start connecting and supporting each other, our children will follow. Though we all share a deep respect for the value of education, our world today demands a larger commitment to the overall physical, emotional, and social needs of our kids, issues that have literally become matters of life and death. Connections and community protect us and help us to grow. I invite you to join me in the important work of building the community our kids deserve. I would appreciate your vote for me, Krista Chakmak, to serve on the Bonita Unified School District Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bahmanou.
Thank you, sir. So my name is Derek Bahmanou. First, I'd like to say, if you guys are interested, there's little treats in the back with my name and card on them, just in case you wanted cards. And if you're not voting for me, please take the candy anyway, because otherwise it's going to go bad, and I'm on a diet and I don't want to eat it. So, but first, I would say my wife and I are very blessed to live in this community. And really, Verne and San Dimas are kind of like one community. I remember in 2011 when we were looking for houses, the housing market dropped, and we had the good fortune of buying a house here. And it has been an amazing experience. And we were very concerned parents. We wanted to make sure our kids went to a school system that would give them a world-class education. And we believe we found that school system. And the reason why I'm running for school board is I want to make sure that our world-class school system becomes even better. And I'm sure all three of us care about our school system. We do. And no matter how the election turns out, I'm confident all three of us will be working to make sure our school system is as good as possible. However, I do believe my voice would be very useful on the school board. I think it would be very powerful to have someone who knows education, who's worked education, who has taught kids in the classroom on our school board. because I think there's certain things you learn along the way when you're working a specific job or trade. So if mastery is something that matters to you, I would encourage you to vote Bahmanou. Thank you.
My friends, I want to thank each of you for coming today and for participating in this forum. We should be very proud of the caliber of candidates we have, each of whom are interested in doing their very best to make our schools and our community the best that it can be. So will you join me in thanking our candidates for this excellent forum? So thank you all, and may God go with you.